In 18th century Britain, an incredible story was quietly unfolding on this land. At that time, Britain was still enveloped in a leisurely and peaceful atmosphere. Farmers in the countryside were contentedly tilling their fields, craftsmen in the towns were diligently working in their small workshops, and the aristocrats were immersed in elegant afternoon tea and social activities. However, beneath this tranquil surface, an imperceptible force was brewing in every corner of society. People began to hear some magical rumors about steam, saying that this invisible and intangible gas could actually drive huge machines to operate. The protagonist of the story was James Watt, the one holding the wrench and tapping on the steam engine. This inventor from a humble background had an unrelenting obsession with steam. People often saw him tirelessly studying mechanical drawings and concentrating on fiddling with those copper pipes and valves. Watt did not know that this steam engine in his hands would become the spark that ignited a revolution sweeping the world. This revolution would completely change the face of Britain and even the entire world. The roar of the steam engine was about to blow the horn of the British Industrial Revolution. Let us step into that steam-filled era, follow in the footsteps of this genius inventor, and witness the great changes of a country and an era. James Watt's obsession with steam originated from a most ordinary afternoon tea. Legend has it that he was observing the teapot lid bouncing up and down incessantly under the propulsion of steam when a sudden flash of inspiration struck him. What would happen if he let steam push a piston? Thus, Watt began his teapot experiment. He continually improved the design and finally created the world's first steam engine in the true sense. This machine utilized the power of steam expansion and converted thermal energy into mechanical energy through the reciprocating motion of the piston. Although the working principle of the steam engine was simple, its impact was revolutionary. With the steam engine, people could build factories anywhere, far away from rivers. The widespread use of coal provided the steam engine with cheap and abundant fuel. Industries such as textiles and mining, which had previously relied on manual labor, began to use steam machines on a large scale. Factory-based industry and mechanized production emerged. The industrial landscape of Britain underwent a dramatic change in just a few decades. In the half-century starting from the 1760s, Britain's total industrial output increased nearly tenfold. A large amount of wealth was generated in this process, and a batch of nouveau riche capitalists squeezed into the upper class. The socio-economic center of gravity began to shift from land to industrial and commercial capital. Steam, something that previously belonged only to teapots on dining tables, had quietly changed the entire economic and social structure of Britain. This machine, crafted by Watt's hands, not only revolutionized the mode of production, but also ushered in a new era of industrialization in Britain. When the roar of the steam engine resounded over Britain, a whole new world was slowly unfolding before people's eyes. The invention of the steam engine not only changed the mode of production, but also profoundly influenced people's lives. When steam technology was applied to the transportation field, an unprecedented transportation revolution quietly began. In 1825, the world's first public railway officially opened in Britain. The rocket steam locomotive, designed by George Stephenson, sped towards the future at an astonishing speed of 30 kilometers per hour. From then on, land transportation entered the steam age. The railway network, like a huge spiderweb, closely connected Britain's cities and countryside. People marveled at the speed and power of this iron horse, and spatial distances were continuously compressed under the power of steam. The tentacles of the steam revolution also extended to the ocean. Steamships traversed the Atlantic, linking Britain with the North American continent. The flow of goods and people became unprecedentedly frequent. What the transportation revolution brought was an unprecedented population movement. A large number of rural laborers poured into cities, seeking opportunities and changing their fates. Emerging industrial cities such as Manchester and Birmingham rapidly rose. Old urban areas became overcrowded, and suburbs continued to expand. Accompanying the urbanization process was also the transformation of the social structure. A brand new middle class was emerging. They were factory owners, bankers, lawyers, and so on. These people accumulated wealth by relying on their own wisdom and sweat. and began to challenge the status of the traditional aristocracy. Their voices were heard in Parliament, and a trend of gentrification also arose in social circles. They advocated liberalism, demanded political rights, and championed free trade. The power landscape of British society was quietly reconstructed in this process. The wheel of time rolls forward, and the speed of change astonishes everyone. When people look back at 18th century Britain, they see a tranquil, almost static picture. However, 19th century Britain is like a speeding steam train, surging forward with earth-shaking momentum. Yet behind the halo of the Industrial Revolution, a shadow that cannot be ignored is quietly spreading. With the establishment of the factory system, a large number of women and children are drawn into the torrent of industrial production. They are the cheapest labor force and the most easily exploited group. In textile factories, children aged 6 or 7 have to work for more than 12 hours a day, their tender hands dancing incessantly in front of the spinning machines until they are exhausted. The living conditions of the workers are worrisome. Long working hours, harsh working environments, and low wages have become the portrayal of their lives. Dark, damp, and stuffy factory workshops, crude, crowded, and filthy urban shacks. This is the reality of life for millions of ordinary workers. At the same time, the gap between the rich and the poor continues to widen. The Industrial Revolution has created enormous wealth, but most of it has flowed into the pockets of the capitalists. In comparison, the income growth of workers is much slower. Social differentiation is becoming increasingly severe, and class contradictions are accumulating. Faced with these problems, British society begins to reflect and adjust. In 1833, the British Parliament passes the Factory Act, prohibiting children under the age of 9 from working in textile factories and restricting the working hours of women and children. This is an important milestone in the protection of workers' rights. However, this is just a beginning. In the following decades, the British government will successively introduce a series of bills to alleviate the social problems brought about by the Industrial Revolution. The workers' movement will also continue to develop, struggling for their rights and promoting social progress. The Industrial Revolution, a term once filled with opportunities and hope, turns out to hide so much hardship and tears. In the roar of those steam engines, we hear not only the progress of the times, but also the outcry of countless ordinary people. The Industrial Revolution, this great change that started in the British Isles, although accompanied by growing pains, has epoch-making significance. Through this revolution, Britain has leaped to become the world's factory. The title, "The Empire on which the sun never sets," is not only a reflection of political and military power, but also a symbol of industrial and economic strength. From London to Manchester, from Liverpool to Glasgow, Britain's industrial cities exude the splendor of the steam age. The Industrial Revolution greatly improves production efficiency. The power of machines has significantly reduced the cost and price of products. Luxury goods that were once exclusive are now entering the lives of ordinary people. From clothing, food, housing, and transportation to daily necessities, industrial products are constantly enriching people's material world. More importantly, the Industrial Revolution profoundly influences people's ideas and concepts. Enlightenment thought rapidly awakens during this process. People begin to question traditional privileges and hierarchies and begin to advocate reason, freedom, and equality. This force of ideological liberation lays the groundwork for future democratic revolutions. Britain, a once obscure island nation, thus leads the world for a century, riding the east wind of the Industrial Revolution. It not only leaves us with great inventions such as the steam engine and the spinning machine, but also leaves us with a precious spiritual heritage. That is, the power of innovation can change the fate of a country. An open mindset can lead the trend of an era. The belief in progress can promote the development of all humanity. Today, when we look back on this history, we can still feel the passion and excitement of that steam age. The Industrial Revolution, this great event, has not only rewritten the history of Britain, but also that of the entire world. What it has left us is a timeless legacy of the era.